Hello, everyone. Welcome to Women Created and Called Live. I do not even know which episode number this one is. We're somewhere around maybe 30, 31, something like that. But I'm so glad that you could join me today because today we're going to be talking about resisting reality and just all the different things that we do to try to avoid reality. What is real? And let me tell you, I know from firsthand experience how much trouble this can get us into when we resist reality. So it's an interesting, what is the word I'm trying to think of? It's like two sides of a coin. It's like on the one hand, you want to acknowledge truth, you want to acknowledge what is, and on the other hand, or other side of the coin, really, you want to have hope for what could be, for possibility. So we're going to be talking about that, and also 6 steps that can help you move forward to accept that reality, and then, okay, now what's next? Now that I have accepted that, then what's next? So again, thank you so much for joining me, and let's dive in. So one of the things, as I was thinking about around this topic, is why do we do this to ourselves? Why can we just want to not accept what really is? And one of them that I thought of is that we want to avoid it very often because it's uncomfortable or even painful. Maybe there's some suffering involved in, I'm so sorry, I have some background noise here. Maybe there's some suffering involved if we actually accept the current circumstances that we find ourselves in. So naturally, that we are kind of wired to avoid pain and anything that's uncomfortable. So it's completely natural. So if you do that, don't worry about it. There's a reason. You're made that way. And at the same time, you can do something about it. You have free will, and you have agency, and you have choice, and you can do something about it. Another reason that we sometimes want to avoid reality is we might feel rejected or, just rejected, or even sort of unfulfilled or even lonely in some area of our life. And so we might look to other areas of our life for validation. For example, maybe at home you feel rejected in some way. Maybe you're not as close as you want to be to your husband or your children or whatever it is. And so it's easier, again, going for what's more comfortable and less painful, to spend more time doing work. So that is definitely a situation that maybe you can relate to. Another thing that we do when we are avoiding reality is stuffing our feelings. We might think, I have no time to deal with feelings, or it's going to be too painful to feel that feeling. So I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to focus on something else. I've noticed this in myself. And so I'll bet some of you who are out there who are very positive people, maybe you can see yourself in this too. I've noticed that when we have a natural tendency to be a very positive person, it can be very easy to do this one and if we perceive something as being too painful, a feeling, then we can very quickly switch to thinking about something more positive so that we have happy feelings, positive feelings, instead of that painful feeling. It's really hard for us to stay in that uncomfortable or painful feeling. And so we can find ourselves just resisting what is, resisting the reality of not only the circumstance, but resisting the reality of what we're thinking about that circumstance, and therefore resisting the feelings that are coming along with it. So, those are some thoughts I had about why we do this and how we can find ourselves resisting reality. So, how about some ways to work through it and shift out of that resistance? So, a first step can be to get clarity about what is reality versus what is your interpretation. So, and by interpretation, I mean the thoughts that you are having about the circumstance that you find yourself in. For example, maybe someone said something to you that you felt hurtful. You felt hurt about what they said to you. Now, if we think about the thought trajectory model, remember, we have a circumstance. The circumstance is neutral. It is fact. This is the reality part, right? It is a fact that would hold up in a court of law. And it's neutral. It's neither good or bad until we have a thought about it. That thought is what is, it's our interpretation of the circumstance. And that is when we think that it is good or bad. So, somebody said something, the actual words, as if you had recorded it. As if you had, I was about to say a tape recording, but that's just showing my age, isn't it? As if you had recorded it on your phone or some type of recording device. But the actual words that they said are a neutral circumstance. The actual words that came out of their mouth. You can put that in that circumstance line. But then whatever they said, you had a thought about it. And that is maybe what you heard, and I'm using air quotes there, because isn't it true? Sometimes somebody says something, but what we actually heard or thought that we heard is not the actual words, the real words that came out of their mouth. So that comes into the thought line. This is the thought that you are having about what they said. And it's not only, even if you did hear their words correctly, the words that were spoken actually reached your ears and you know what they said, you will have your own interpretation of what those words meant. And that is your own thought. Those thoughts come from you, not that person. In reality, you cannot know what their actual thought behind those words were. You can only know for sure, the only reality that you can know is the words that were actually spoken. And that's a very important distinction to make. Because we have to always be on guard against guessing other people's thoughts and feelings, This is where we get into trouble, really. Again, if somebody says something that you perceive as hurtful, it's because you have a thought about the actual words that they said. And whatever thought you are thinking about what they said is creating certain feelings in you. You might feel hurt, like I said, if you interpret it as being something that was hurtful. So the first step is to clarify what is actually what they said and which parts are your interpretation of it. Then the second step is to stay with those feelings. Remember how I said some of us like to avoid feeling that feeling because we're naturally a positive person and we just want to shift quickly to happier feelings, really? This second step helps us avoid making that shift too quickly. It's important to stay with the feeling long enough to let it process through you, because that feeling is causing actual physical feelings in your body. For example, if someone, again, we're going to go back to using something that somebody said as a circumstance. If someone says something and you have a thought that maybe you're in danger. That's your thought. Oh, I'm in danger. You might be feeling anxiety about that circumstance and coming from that thought. And if you're feeling anxiety, I don't know about you, but I know this feeling quite well. And I feel it usually in my chest. I feel a tightness in my chest. Very often, if it's a very strong, full out panic attack, I will have a shortness of breath. It'll get really hard to breathe. And I might have this feeling like I need to, my fight or flight has been activated and I feel like I need to move from the place where I am. And I almost like I want to run away. So that's what anxiety feels like in my body. And if I avoid first acknowledging that I'm feeling that way, and I avoid actually letting it process through my body, then it is very likely to come back. It will come back sooner than if I had actually allowed it to be there and sat with it for a little while. So, step 2 was stay with the feelings long enough to fully process them. Okay, step 3. And this is a little bit part of processing those feelings, but step 3 is to invite Jesus in. Sorry, I hear an airplane going by. Hopefully you didn't hear that. But invite Jesus in. And in this step, you can use your imagination to, if you just ask yourself, how would Jesus interpret this current reality? What is his interpretation? And then what would he do with these feelings that you are feeling? And again, you can close your eyes and you can just imagine this in your mind. The way my coach, Lisa, loves to put it is as if you were watching it on a movie screen. Or in my mind, if I think about it, I don't think I really think of it like a like a movie screen so much, but I think of it more like I'm in the same room with him. And Jesus walks into the room, and whatever is happening to me in that moment when I am really sitting in those uncomfortable feelings, he says or does something, if I ask my brain, what is Jesus doing? What is Jesus saying? Then my brain actually goes to work looking for an answer, and using my gift of imagination that God gave us, I can imagine what he would say and what he would do. And I've experienced this many times in coaching, and it is incredible how quickly, when you bring Jesus into the picture, how quickly my own feelings can dissipate. I can just feel it leave my body. I think I shared last week on that episode about how I was feeling a storm spinning around me. I talk about storms spinning around us a lot on this on this show, because that just is a human experience, right? And in that imagery that I had in my imagination as I was processing those feelings, I thought, I can't stop this storm, but Jesus can. And with a word in my imagination, he did. And when that happened, it really felt like a full-on panic attack last week when I experienced this. But in my imagination, when he stopped the storm, I physically, in my body, could breathe better. And I started to calm down, just like the storm. So that is step 3. Invite Jesus in. Use your imagination to think, how does he interpret your current reality? And what does he do with your feelings? Then, step 4, let Jesus's words influence a new thought for you. Let him give you a new thought. And then play that one on repeat. Instead of having these thoughts that are not serving you well on repeat in your brain, maybe thoughts that accuse you of things that you have or have not done. Maybe it's a voice that is really beating you up for not showing up for your family, for making a mistake at work, for, one that a lot of us women hear is, your efforts are not good enough. Do you ever hear that on repeat in your brain? I do, for sure. I do. And thank God I have tools to process that, to recognize it as not fact, and to process the feelings that come from that thought so that I can let it go. And then I can use Jesus's words to influence my new thought that I can put on repeat. And since it came from him, I know that it's the truth. And that is powerful. That is so powerful, to know the truth about you. So, as you're working on getting this new thought, these words from Jesus, remember that his words are never condemning, but they might be convicting and compelling, where they usually are convicting and or compelling, and sometimes they might be comforting. Even if you're being called into a reality that is uncomfortable, sometimes you can still feel comfort even though he's calling you into something new and unfamiliar and even a little bit scary. It's amazing how Jesus' words can do that. Now, quick note, in case you missed a previous episode where I made the distinction between condemning and convicting, because they sound very similar. A condemning word is the words like you'll never be enough, like you are, you messed up again, how could you? These words that are not helpful. They will leave you staying stuck. That is words that condemn. Words that convict are different. They might help you see a place or something that you could have done differently, but they will compel you to act. They won't leave you staying stuck and feeling like you can't get up and move on. A convicting word will show you, it's like the bugs on the windshield analogy. It's like, the sunlight shines on the windshield, shows me where it's dirty so that I can do something about it. That is like the convicting words that you might get from Jesus. Here is where you can do better. And he is saying it with so much love for you that you know that that's true. You know that you can do better. And not only can you, but he is giving you the grace and everything that you need to actually do it better. And that is so powerful. And like I said, these words from Jesus are convicting, like I said, but also compelling. They are compelling you into action. Good actions that will serve you so well. Okay, so that's that note between condemning and convicting. Step 5 is think about, okay, now that I have a different thought that's going to serve me so much better than what I was thinking before about this reality, this circumstance that I'm in. Now that I have new thoughts that are going to help me, what is my next action? Now, if you are in a situation, if this reality that you are trying to not resist, that you're working toward accepting, if that reality is leading to painful feelings, and we just talked about how to process those. But if you're going through something hard, this next action might be a really small one. And that is perfectly okay. That is perfectly okay. So you're asking yourself in this step 5, what is my next action? Or if you're still in that imagery in the room with Jesus, ask him what your next action is. Either way, it's a great practice to ask him because he'll tell you. Then let your brain offer creative solutions and then choose something. Almost anything, as long as it's a moral choice, as long as your brain has offered good options, just choose something. And like I said, it's perfectly okay if it's something small. No problem. Then step 6, commit. And then act. So the first part of this, to help you commit to this action. And again, if this reality that you are not resisting anymore feels hard, then it helps to really get connected to why you are committing to this next action. Ask yourselves a couple of questions. Why does it matter? Why does this next little action matter? Why now? Why do I need to take this action right now? Now is the time. And another question, what is at stake if I don't act right now? And then one more, what is possible when I do act? When I do take this action? So I'm going to tell you those 4 questions again, okay? The first one is, why does it matter for me to take this action? Okay. The second one was, why now? Why is it important for me to act right now? Third one was, what's at stake if I don't act? And the fourth one was, what is possible when I do take this action? And then go do it. And that is how you can stop resisting reality. You can work through the thoughts and the emotions that come up, and then you can move forward from there. And in all transparency, these are steps that I'm taking myself. A lot of times when I create content for this podcast, I am sharing with you things that I'm working through myself. And I'm sharing with you what I have found that has helped. And I hope that it serves you too. And I also want you to know that you are not meant to do this alone. Community is key. Being connected with other people who are walking on the journey, doing their best to accept reality in this case, and to walk toward Jesus, walk with Jesus on this journey we call life. It's so important to stay connected with other people in community. And that's why I want to let you know that if this is one of the things that is the struggle for you, really accepting reality and knowing how to process through when challenges come up, as I usually call them, when the storms happen, I want to let you know that I can walk with you. Just reach out to me on social media, on Facebook or Instagram, or drop me an email at beth@womencreatedandcalled.com. And I would love to have a chat with you and see how I can serve you. So I will see you next week on Women Created and Called Live. And until then, God bless you and all those that you love. Bye.